Closing play with me, Sanjay Murthy, and Ashes winner Geraint Jones. Hello, mate. English season's about to start. Let's I'll ask you a question, actually, which is why we're here. I mean, that's what I do. I ask you questions and you give me very good answers. But the county season used to define England careers. Question part one of that is, do you think it still does? And did it define yours back in the day?
I don't think as much now, to be honest. If you look at the way, Jacob Bethel hardly play, doesn't he? So they definitely have a method of choosing now that doesn't necessarily involve you having performed for a number of years in county cricket. You can burst onto the scene very young. You might do something, really outstanding in under-19 cricket. Then they choose Lions stuff. So it's more about that, I think. But yeah, because back to my time, the reason I got picked to go on my first England tour was because I got a 100 and an 80 or 90 not out against Nasser Hussain in a match for Kent versus Essex. And that season, I burst onto the scene, right time, right place. I scored a truckload of runs, and I was seen by people who were in that England setup. Nasser then went and spoke to Duncan about me, and I went on the tour. And so there I am arguing, you don't have to do much in my first year, but someone like Straussy played 5 or 6 years and all the other guys. So it definitely used to be that you had to be a regular producer in county cricket, whereas now the younger guys going through the Lions setup gets them the opportunities rather than weight of performances in county cricket.
Yeah, we'll get to that a bit more because there's a call between Brendan McCullum and the directors of cricket coming up, where I assume he's going to lay out, he being McCullum, that is, what is expected of county cricket and county cricketers over the course of the season. So it'll be interesting to see if that changes at all. But I want to start off with Ben Stokes. Now, he's going to miss the first month of the season because of the facial injuries that he sustained. And in fact, I think he was supervising some practice, I believe, and got hit in the face. But his county, Durham, got relegated last year from Div 1 to Div 2. I mean, should the England captain be playing in Division 2? And sort of, again, two-part question. Should England only pick from Division 1? Is Division 2 sort of not fit for purpose?
Absolutely not. I think you want everyone playing county cricket to feel they've got an opportunity to play for England. Because if that divide, there's already one where the test match counties, because of their revenue streams, have an advantage. Look at Surrey, the people they have playing for Surrey, the way you can attract them. And so for me, I like the chance of no matter who you play for, you get an opportunity. And yeah, you mentioned Ben Stokes there. I think he'd popped into a Durham Academy session, and he said It's his own fault. And it sounded horrific. It's one of the first things you say is keep your eyes on the nets. And so he's, that's how that's happened. And so he's not going to play. And so, no, I don't think it matters where your England captain is playing, but what you do need him to do is to play. To go into that first test match, relatively undercooked. I'm sure there'll be a level of what he's allowed to do, but probably just holding him back from the matches. And he's also got to wrap him up in a bit of cotton wool with his injuries. He can't go play for Durham and sort of bowl a load of overs, because then that won't allow him to perform for England. But no, I'm not bothered where the England captain plays. And I firmly believe that everyone playing in county cricket should have the drive and the belief that they can play for England. And if you take that away by saying if you're in Division 2, that's not an opportunity, what's going to motivate those guys?
Yes, I see your point, but also you could say that look at the Australians, where they've got, was it 6 states that play Shield cricket, and they've got a really good grade cricket structure underneath it, and that is kind of your opportunity for the best, the cream to rise to the top, and then go play for the state sides, and how well they've performed over the years, especially against England. And my argument against that would be that you should Now, you should pick from Division 1 because inherently it's stronger, but also I think the wider dream, if you like, there is that the county system is replaced by a super county system, which I know has been discussed in the past and poo-pooed and whatever. But my argument against, picking from 18 counties is that if you're picking from fewer stronger counties, by inference, the players you're picking will be stronger, thus a stronger England side.
Yeah, but I feel you're not giving tradition enough sort of credence there with these counties. You mentioned about Australia, and it's always been that way that they've done it. You've had those states, and the I went through the sort of the structure underneath the league structure and you played for a club that you could get to play for first grade for. You might start in sixth grade, but you always had the ambition that I was wanting to get to first grade because from first grade I could play for my state. That was the way it is. And so, but over here, tradition has dictated there's 18 counties. So I'd like you to go to the Kent members and tell them, you know what, on your bike, I'm not interested in you because I'm going to reference my school here at St Lawrence College. I've seen firsthand what sort of tradition and how much that means to people, and how we were going to move and merge with another school, and we've got a beautiful site. But from the power of the parents, power of the old boys and girls, it showed that actually tradition matters a heck of a lot. And I get it. 18 is a lot, and it's probably dilutes the quality. 100%, I get it. But for me, having come to England to play cricket, and the tradition is so important that that's for me is a big part of it. But the issue is, yes, you're filling up 18. You're trying to fill up 18 teams. I get both sides. Yeah, I'm sitting on a
And look,
fence.
I get tradition also. I mean, if you don't know your history, you don't know your today and you don't know your tomorrow, right? I get that bit. But also, you could argue that history has held English cricket back, because of this vehement, holding on to, if you like, something that served. Which goes back to the first point about whether county cricket is still fit for purpose. It was. And the question is, does the system hold cricket back in this country? And then if you look at the way the 100 came about. The 100 came about because they had to circumnavigate the existing traditional system, and the only one of the ways of doing it was to create a whole new tournament, which broke against heritage. And the Kent members, I'm sure, didn't like that, as a lot of members don't. And you know, at some point, for the betterment, and I use that word commercially as well as from an entertainment sense, there has to be a consideration to break from tradition so that the game has got a chance of progressing. Because today's audience isn't the same as the audience 50 years ago who loved county, and the crowds are bigger. And you can see that with the dwindling crowds in county cricket on average. And so my argument is that, and I know this is about whether England should pick from Div 1 only, but let's just go with it, is that actually the system needs regenerating for better players, better product, more crowds, a better TV product. So that's kind of my overarching argument, really, as opposed to necessarily England should pick from Div 1.
Yeah, I'm trying to think out what on earth he just said to me, to be honest. But
It was a lot of words, isn't it? And some big ones in there as well, which I was quite proud of.
yeah, I found myself agreeing with you, in certain parts of it, where if we're thinking picking for England, then having a super competition where arguably your best players are promoted into, I can see the value of that, 100%. They've reduced the amount of fixtures, haven't they? So they've looked at Australia, what makes them good. How can we get the players up for it more? Rather than a long slog of a county season of, all those championship matches, they've reduced that to try and get the quality better by giving them less workload. So that there's little subtle bits, but then it all gets thrown back with, so why are they giving the counties £24 million each to be sustainable for going forward? if they didn't think that that's what their plans were in the next 10, 20, 30 years.
Well, and I was going to bring Sussex into it. They've posted a 1.3 million pound loss to the financial year that ended in 2025, and they're forecasting another £1 million shortfall this year. Therefore, on top of whatever I assume the ECB gives them as a handout from the 100 windfall, they've had to bail them out as well, thus resulting in a 12 points deduction for Sussex, who are in Div 1. And that's my point, really, is that Sussex are unlikely. Middlesex have had financial issues. They're unlikely to be Sussex, the only first-class county that has financial issues. And so, therefore, my point is that the structure clearly needs changing, because if a county is reliant on bailouts and therefore they're now restricted on who they can sign, they're a weaker product. All right, they're lucky that probably Archer, his salary is covered by by his central contract, and James Coles, who we mentioned last week because of his massive auction windfall, is likely to go to a bigger county. I hear that Hampshire have made a bid for him. And that's my point. If those counties were wrapped up in something bigger, these issues wouldn't exist, and it would be a more palatable product, let's say, for Sky to pick up and make something into, as they've done with 100. So that's my argument. That's the case for the breaking up of our much beloved county system. Members at
County.
Hampshire and Kent. When I go and do my commentary for Hampshire next, I'm going to be booed, I think, from the car park to the.
You're going to go to scan in, and it's just going to go cross, get him out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We don't want to type here.
But the one thing with it is this, is there's all sorts of caveats with the money that they're handing out. It's not like they've won the lottery overnight and you get 25 million. Let's go.
And stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and what a lot of the counties, so some of the counties I know Kent are thinking of it, and I know Sussex have got a plan to basically develop these performance centres. So at the moment, I go to the Spitfire ground, although it's not going to be called that anymore. I go there, and it's got the wicket, it's got the pitch, but around it, it's got a fairly old indoor cricket centre. It's got a bit of a gym. My understanding is their thoughts are that, okay, we've got Beckenham. Can we turn that into a high performance centre? So that's what I think a lot of the counties are going towards. I heard that Lancashire, they're moving to this super ground, which enables, it's a high performance that not only can professional teams play there, but all your pathway, all your age cricketers. It's got the gyms, it's got all the technology. So I think that can only be a good thing, because there is a thriving amount of youngsters who want to play cricket and want to play for England. But I think at the moment, we talked recently issues about money side of it. So I'm hoping that this ECB money can help make that pathway easier for those that can't afford it. And it's, so it's bits like that. So I think they want cricket to be better. They understand that there's tradition of 18 counties. They're giving them money, which has all sorts of attachments that is aimed to make cricket better and more sustainable, so that there's a better product, better players, stronger England.
For me, I think that's just papering over the cracks, to be honest with you. I think that the Australian model is the one to follow, where there's less counties that are stronger, and then there's competition underneath it. Anyway, let's move on to the county season as it will happen, not how me and my great vision for the future wants it to happen. Do you think it's a pivotal season for county cricket this year, given what's happened with the Ashes and a bit of an outcry and a backlash, I think, in the way that England have selected?
I think arguably the spotlight is going to be on county cricket more than since McCullum's come into it. Rob Key tinkered. He tried to get, they brought in Kookaburra ball, and it just became a run fest. So they've tried to do things to prepare. So, but with everything that's gone on the Ashes, everything that's gone on in the media over the last week, with Livingston coming out, Paul Firebrace has come out, and there's one more that spoke about that opportunities and being spoken to. So I think this season as a county cricketer, you should be quite excited that, hang on a minute, I'm going to get some eyes on me, more eyes on me than there has in previous years. And so, so that could inspire some guys to actually lift their performance up, because eyes on means there's a chance here I might get picked up.
Is it the job there? Do you still think it's the job of county cricket to produce international cricketers, or is the job of county cricket to create a product at at a county level that its local environment engages with and puts money behind?
No, every county should be aiming to get as many England cricketers as they can. And that's from the moment a 7, 8-year-old walks in their doors. They have to provide that to them, because I remember having some chats in the dressing rooms, because certain players, it's their pinnacle is, right, I've got to counter cricket. I'm professional,
Hmm.
and then they sort of stall at that point. And this is where the counties come into it, and where the coaches, and they earn their pounds, and to say to them, this isn't where we want you to stop. We want you to play for us, but go beyond us and play for England. Okay, because every professional should be their aim, to get to that top level, and at each level you want to know that you can succeed. Okay, and if you can't succeed, right, what do I need to do to improve? So, that I'd be disappointed if counties are saying to their players when they walk in the door, that's we just want you to play for Hampshire, we just want you to play
Hmm.
for Kent.
Hmm.
You know, because as a youngster, you go in there and say, well, I want to play for England, and they go, no, we're not worried about that. Just play for Kent. That's good enough
Hmm.
for us.
Hmm.
That's not right.
But then I read, I went to a thing the other day, Hampshire Cricket, sort of little round table, and one of the development guys from Hampshire was saying that the average speed on the speed gun at county cricket is 78 miles an hour, whereas at the international level it's like 84 or something. And do you think, and this is an opinion from me really, do you think that that's one of the reasons why McCullum and Key don't believe in the county system? So I'm
Yeah,
making the inference that
Kesey
they don't.
hated.
Hmm.
Yeah, Kesey hated the Dobbers.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, he because exactly that at international level you are operating at bowlers of mid 80s, and so having these county bowlers that come and bowl late 70s, nip it around, that's fine, but it's not. They're not. They're not going to be able to do that for England, and so that's why I think they've parked a lot of those players and have gone for the likes of who we saw over the winter, because they've got that difference. They've got height, they've got pace. Okay, but what McCullum and Key can't do is rule out the skill of these guys. And Robinson down at Sussex is one, for example. He's clearly a highly skillful bowler who had success at the top level, but then was perceived not to be quick enough. I think he didn't work on his fitness as much as he should have, and
Hmm.
and and whatever. But they're now looking at him and going, well, actually, he doesn't bowl quick enough. But can his skill level? McGrath didn't bowl particularly quick, did he? I wasn't scared of McGrath's pace. I was terrified of his skill level. And so
Yeah.
it's that balance. It's that balance. But that's the percent. Over the last few years, Key and McCullum have valued pace above anything else, I think.
Yeah. It is that balance because McGrath had either a Lee or a Sean Tate or somebody else who was different to him, who were terrorizing people with their pace. Not saying they weren't skillful as well, but then you had McGrath metronomic at one end. And I think England, if you go back to summer, it was very much batter them with pace. Wood, Archer, Cass, and only towards the end when sort of Atkinson came in, maybe it was a bit more balanced. But do you think, batters and bowlers together? You mentioned Ollie Robinson there down at Sussex as captain this year, I believe. But then you look at other bowlers of that type, batters, Nick Gubbins, Dom Sibley, Hasib Hamid. Do you think realistically they've got a chance, or is it a case of actually it doesn't matter what you do this year, we just don't fancy you? And we're going to come to the DOC meeting in a minute, and I'm going to ask you what you think of that. But do you think ultimately England aren't really going to change their strategy? because their objective remains the same. And so therefore these guys haven't really got a chance. And as you've said before, Key likes talent, loves talent, and is just going to pick on talent regardless of performance in the county championship.
Yeah, because the other thing that, and I'm putting these words out, but the other thing that Keysy sort of thinks about is batters batting to play at county level. When you're playing at test level, there's a different, the ball bounces a lot more. I had a bit of a chat with Zach Crawley in the week, about exactly this. He was talking about Joe Root saying about where he needs to play the ball late and under his eyes. And at test level, you can do that because you've got you're playing on fantastic wickets which are rising. But at county level, you've got these lower pace bowlers pitch it up and nip it around the place. And Zach's played twice this year and been, nip back, bang in front LBW. And so that's the other thing Keysy is very much aware of, that you, by facing these 78, 80 mile an hour bowlers, your technique is different to what's required at Test cricket. So that's the other element of it, which why they're essentially plucking these batters out, is because they're going, well, have they got the skill set which is going to go up at Test cricket? And so when you mention Sibley and Hamid and these guys, they've probably been found out a little bit at that next level because of exactly that. Dom Sibley quite very leg side with his play. Hamid at one point had very low hands.
Yeah.
And so at Test cricket, it was more of a challenge. So there's that element as well that they're looking at and thinking of. But those guys are the ones I'm probably inferring to, that eyes on them this year they've got to be looking at it going, well, this is my best opportunity in the last 3 years, because there's a number of players who are on the back of a poor winter. And they've said, the fact that McCullum's talking to all these directors of sport, every director of cricket should be banging on and pushing their opening batters down Key and McCullum's throat and saying, you have to look at these guys,
Do you think a route they will go down, and we're sort of second guessing, aren't we? Really, is rather being going back, and those three guys I mentioned on the batting side, Gubbins, Hamid, and Sibley. You mentioned the technical deficiencies, if you like, when they first played for England, and they've had a significant time to change those and play in a different way, and have not been tested at international level. I get that, but and they score a weight of runs and they still don't get in. Do you think England are likely to go, right, okay, thank you, but no thanks. We know what you can do and you're there if we need you, but we're going to look for the next Bethel, Ace of Tribe will come into that, the next this. So looking for young tearaways who've got talent and notwithstanding what you said about county cricket, Rob Key is going to say, right, okay, well, you may not have had the weight of runs or the performances behind you, but we think you can do it. Here's your chance. Do you think that's a likelier route that they will go down, as opposed to looking backwards and saying, yeah, you've done well at county cricket, here's your chance?
Yeah, again, their methodology suggests that, doesn't it? That that's what they're looking for. And you've also got to think of the cycle they're in. The next Ashes series, that tends to be what people look at as who could be opening the batting, and will those elder statesman guys still be around? Surrey were at Kent this week, and when I went there and did a little bit of work, the guys I spoke to said Sibley looked a different level, compared to everyone else there. But will the management go back and say, well, actually, not potentially we made a mistake because he didn't have, his loss of form led him to be out of it. But that's the big factor. Is almost, within those selectors, are they willing to go back to those guys and almost, take a bit of flack from, to say, well, hang on a minute, there's all these youngsters and you're going back to someone who's had a go and hasn't had the success that you wanted. So that's the balance, sort of, what's the ego like of these selectors? Are they willing to stick their necks out and choose someone that's Sibley that everyone raves about, but is a bit older and has had one opportunity, or someone like, Ace of Tribe for me, he's T20, he's done really well for the Lions. But he just did it last year. He did it for 1 year for Glamorgan. Does he have to do it? Does he need to do it again? or do you promote him quickly? These are all the real balance things that you look at. Some players are just need to keep being challenged, and they rise to those challenge. Other players, it's a real fine balance to put them in the spotlight at the right time for them.
Let's transport you to a new role. You are the director of cricket at Kent. You've got your Kent top on there, so that's not that much of a leap. And you're in this meeting. I believe it's a Zoom call. All the directors of cricket, Key and possibly McCullum. He was optional, I believe, on the thing that I saw. And it might be a New Zealand time difference thing. Let's not get into that. What are you expecting from that call as the newly appointed, and I apologise for the existing DOC of Kent Cricket, but you are now the DOC of Kent Cricket for this particular conversation. What are you expecting from that call?
Yeah, Cookie's not going to like me the next time I see him. One, why the heck was it optional? That's what
I think he's in New Zealand. That's what I think.
Well, so he's got to get out of bed. There was a
Yeah, well,
big
that's the
thing this
problem,
week,
right?
wasn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah,
Exactly. That you're talking about should our national coach of all three formats, be based overseas and jet in. But anyway,
yeah.
that's
Anyway,
for
it's a
another
different. Yeah.
podcast. What am I asking?
What
First
are
and
you
foremost, I'll
expecting?
be expecting. Well, I
And asking if you want. You can do it however you like.
yeah, you know, I want I want to be able to say to my players about a pathway for them that that those of the opportunity for you to progress. Be, um, one, yes, second division cricket is valued.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they say to me on that call, we are actually just looking at first division cricket. Yeah, well, then how do I go and motivate? So that's something that I want to hear is that do you value every player that is playing professionally? And, and then if so, how are you going to look at them? Because that's another thing is that there was the call was that very few sort of selectors would go around the grounds and
Yeah, that's
actually
what
get
Darren
eyes
Lehman
eyes
selected.
on it. So
Mm.
yeah. So how are you guys going to get round and see my players for them to be able to have a vision of playing under you for England? Because that's what they all want to do. But at the moment, they don't feel that there's any pathway for them or value in them because they're playing second division cricket, really. Apart from Zach Crawley, that is, who's obviously centrally contracted.
Yeah, you got Stokes, you got Cass, who else? Wood, to a certain extent. Playing second division cricket and playing for England. When at the Hampshire thing I went to the other day, they were talking about Ben Mays and Manny Lumsden, but specifically Ben Mays. He's a generational talent, as Jacob Bethel is. And one of the question I asked was, whether they were expecting in that call for some guidance to be given to Hampshire as to what they expect from Hampshire to develop Lumsden and Mays so that they could be potential England players in the future. Do you think is that part of a conversation? Do you think? And if so, do you believe that the counties will do that at an expense of what's best for them?
Yeah, it's a bit of a framework, isn't it? So at counties across at each age group, you have a chart of where you expect them, what skill levels you expect them to have when they're under 12s, 13s, 14s, and it develops bit by bit by bit, and so that potentially is something that they can deliver to say to them that we expect a test match batter. This is what skill sets we expect them to have. I imagine I've got to bring him up every week. Patch does a lot of
Oh, I
that
thought
stuff for
Jordan
the
Cox was coming
ECB.
into the conversation.
No, that's later on in the
Oh,
conversation.
yeah, true,
But
yeah.
Patch does a lot of those presentations to do it. So Kesey does do a lot of thinking behind it, and a lot of those presentations go out around expectations of a fast bowler. There's Jofra Archer has virtually got the perfect bowling action. So they do push that stuff out there. But I suppose it's something like, is it as basic as to play for England, you need to be scoring over 1,000 runs a year as a batter, and
Yeah.
as a bowler, we want you taking 40 plus wickets. That's something very simple. Going back to my business teaching, your smart targets.
Yeah.
Can I put in front of my squad a set of targets that they know that you are benchmarking them against to be considered to be an England player?
What's the S again? I know the M. M's measurable, isn't it? Measurable, actionable,
Yeah.
relatable, and something else. I seem to remember from back in the day.
Smart, isn't it? It's time.
Yeah, what's the S? Can you
Time
remember?
factor.
Oh, what the S is.
Specific.
Oh, specific. Oh, there you go. See, well done. Is that call from England to the counties usual? Is it a normal thing, or is this the first time it's happened, where all the DOCs have got together with the coach and expectations have been laid down?
I don't know, mate. I've only been in the role 5 minutes.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's unusual. It's unusual.
Yeah. Well, it's a good thing. If there's clarity and everyone knows what is expected in McCullum and stuff, then that's cool. Right. Let's take a little break, mate, and let's move on to Silly Point. That was a heavy half an hour. It's good. I enjoyed that. I think we got some stuff off our chest there. I'm a super counties man, I tell you, all day, every day. We're going back to Who Am I this week. I've thought of somebody, and I've got those 10 points. And you did well last. You got Stephen Fleming last time. It's that game, by the way. It's the Stephen Fleming game. Just so you know what we're playing. I am going to read you one by one. You get. There's no Saj to help you along here, so yeah, you get a guess at the end of each one, and we'll see. I think it was like 6 or 7 last time when you got Stephen Fleming. So we'll go with that. You ready?
Are you going to give me a chance to have a break, or are you just cracking on?
No, we're going to crack on today. We've got things to do, mate. Things to do. This person is a conservationist. Well, he's a cricketer, but anyway, he's a conservationist. And he would say to you, I have a lifelong love for wildlife and became the first official patron of the World Land Trust. In 1997, a role I share with Sir David Attenborough. Any idea who that is?
I don't know why this name popped into my head. Did you say he's... Oh, no, he is. I was thinking Tony Robinson out of...
no, he's a cricketer.
Yeah, from the TV, and then I went, hang on a minute, I'm on a cricket podcast here. Get your act together.
Yeah, exactly. Any ideas on that one?
1997.
1997, the first official patron of the World Land Trust. This person can put your phone down.
Hang on.
Put your phone, a bloody co-pilot, sneaking it in.
No idea, mate. Next question.
During a 1986 Test match against New Zealand, I became the only England player to be called for chucking, after deliberately tossing the ball to concede the winning run. Who is this player?
I should know them, shouldn't I? 1986.
Yeah, it's actually, for something that's quite big, it's not that well known. Yeah, it was the first time I'd heard of it. It wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
Coming to you. Shall I move on to the next one to give you, if you're not getting it from that one? Yeah, what are you looking at down there for?
No, I'm looking at that because my son's just messaged me, just tell me he's got a lift back from his golf game. So
that's all right then. The third thing about this guy, and it is a guy, I provided an immediate hint of my talent by pulling the very first ball of my Test career for 4 against Pakistan in 1978. Giving a clue on when this guy played. So, conservationist, chucking.
It's the trouble is, I've been out in the sun and the wind all that, and my brain is pretty poor. I had a few glasses of red wine last night, so I'm not in the best of frames of it.
Let's go to the 4th point then.
Oh, this could be painful for the listeners.
I held a world record for playing 119 consecutive Test innings without scoring a single duck between 1982 and 1990.
Well played, sir.
Yeah, so he's up there, this person, isn't he? He's a king of consistency, you'd say, along with having a dream debut.
I'm sure, dream debut.
There's people at home who will listen to this going, it's this person.
So, I know, mate. My head is
Okay,
nowhere.
let's go with the
it's
next
going to
one.
be so obvious.
I retired from
It's not.
international cricket.
I'm trying to think of that era.
Yeah, so he
Go on.
retired this person in 1993 with 8,231 Test runs, which was the record for the most runs scored for England at that time. Who
I know,
played
this
in
I'm going to
the
crucial.
matches? Next one. In recognition of
Wasn't
my
boycott,
elegant...
was it?
Eh? Was that?
Boy, I'm trying to think who was the run scorers of that era. Gooch.
Gooch, who was that?
That's before Gucci. Yeah,
In recognition of my career, I was inducted into the ICC Cricket Hall of Fame in 2009. Doesn't really help you, that one at all, does it? After retiring from the field,
his name?
I became a household name on television as a regular team captain on the BBC comedy quiz show They Think It's All Over, in case you thought it was beefy, which it isn't.
Yeah, no. And it's not tough, as he never scored 8,000 runs.
No. Yeah, so
the ones.
all right, yeah, that's 7. So let's go with 8. I was the captain.
Mate,
I was the captain who led England to a famous 3-1 Ashes victory. Ashes, mate, you share something in common with this bloke. In 1985, scoring a personal record of 732 runs in the series. Who was the captain in 85?
This is so bad for me.
I know.
Mate, I just can't
These
think.
are great clues as well.
They're far too good, and I should be all over
Brilliant. Yeah, exactly.
Can I have an initial?
Would have got it ages ago.
it. Sir, can I have an initial, please? Come on.
No, you can have 2 more questions.
What?
Though.
Oh, what county?
You can have 2 more questions before we get to ad hoc clues. I was born on the 1st of April 1957, a birthday I coincidentally share with the teammate who joined me in my most famous off-field prank.
Oh, well, those two. So the moth flying was Gower.
Yeah. So the final clue is I was famously fined
David
£1,000
Gower.
for buzzing a cricket field in a rented Tiger Moth biplane while my teammates were playing a tour match in Australia. The answer is
David Gower.
the Lord Gower. Exactly. There you go. See, that's good,
do
isn't
you know
it?
what? When I thought of him, and this, I genuinely think of it when you said about the runs and stuff.
Yeah,
but then
8,000. I mean,
when you said about noughts, that's what I ruled him out, because I reckon he nicked off. But clearly, Lord Gower.
Yeah, you'd think so with the way that he played, wouldn't you? The Lord Gower.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
And
really,
he's a
in
local.
those days,
He went to school locally at King's here in Canterbury.
Oh, well, there you are. You
Yeah,
see.
you could have put that in early, and I would have got it 6 questions ago.
Well, I think I took that one out actually. In those days it was Gooch, Boycott, Gower. They were the 3 really, weren't they? Because as you said in the previous pod, that was the era, where there was a lot of rotation. Ramprakash, Hick, and Morris, and John Terry, and loads of those sort of types of blokes. Let's get back to county cricket then. In the last sort of 10 minutes or so, not to the champions. Leicester and Glamorgan came up. Who do you think is going to win it?
I always think it's hard to rule out Surrey every year. I think they won it the year before, didn't they? And so, they their bank balance helps them just bring players in, and so that for me. But Notts as previous champions, I find it very hard to go past Surrey.
Okay, we'll go with them. Div 2 is interesting. You got Durham, you got Lancashire in Div 2, Middlesex and your beloved Kent. I mean, it's a strong league, even though what I said earlier about only picking from Div 1. Lancs have got cash. But what do you think Kent's chances are? Sam Northeast is back from Glamorgan. Is he a bit of a talisman for the county?
Massive, absolutely massive. The runs that he got 100 retired today in the warm-up match. Yes, people are going to say, so it's only Oxford Uni, but I've spoken to him a few times over the last few weeks, months when he's been at the ground, and what struck me again was his desire and his appetite to score runs. It is off the charts. I remember as a youngster, he wasn't, if he got out, he wasn't interested in watching the game. He just wanted to go bat, work on his game. And the fact he's scoring runs, his time at Glamorgan was huge. He worked through them. He got that highest ever score at Lords. So Sam is huge. They've got Milnes back as bowler, and adding to that, because that was a bit of Kent's issues last year. And then they've got their overseas in. So the overseas last year did his knee in playing, doing a header in football or something. So he's come back. So it's, I've got to say that I've got to go with them, don't I? I'm director of cricket for a start, so I have to back my team.
Yeah, you were at Kent, Surrey in that capacity. Who did you see? What did you make of Surrey, given the fact that you think that they're going to be up there?
Yeah, they just, they're a good unit. They got some good names who've played Test cricket. Their bowlers were coming. Yeah, it was a fairly flat, placid wicket, and it was very much a pre-season where guys rolled on, rolled off, what have you.
Okay.
But we're getting to the nitty gritty of it this weekend with a few more of the pre-season matches going on. So the fact that I say Sam Northeast has got 100. Compton is we talk about
He's
players who have produced over the last few years. Compo has got a load of hundreds, but his style means that he's not considered. He's a throwback. He bats time.
Be like his cousin
you talk
Nick.
about, yeah, well, but difference, but he doesn't fit into the style of Bazball as we've seen it. Whether or not now he does, if they're changing a little bit on that. But so Compo got 100 as well. Zach's got a couple of low scores. But if Zach's not in the Test side, and you have Northeast, you have Compton up the top, you have Bell Drummond, you have Mieye, and then you add to it some improved bowling stocks. I'm excited about Kent. And then yes, and Surrey was Surrey. They were just very solid. Really high class players.
Are you going to turn into Gary Neville like he is on Stick to Football, where whatever question or team you ask, he sort of brings it back to talking about Manchester United? You're going to bring it back to Kent. Let's see if you keep doing that.
That's because probably they're the only teams I know.
Yeah, you mentioned Zach Crawley. Surrey would have assumed Jamie Smith was there, and Will Jacks. Who, apart from Smith and Crawley and potentially Jacks, let's say, who else do you think are playing? Who's playing for their England career in May, especially because the first test I think is the 6th of June or something.
I think you've probably got to throw Duckett into that, and especially as he has come not gone to the IPL, and the extraordinary statement that seems to have come out is that he wants to be more professional.
Yeah.
So I think that's the Bethel has inked in, isn't he? You got Root, and then you got Brook. So for me, it's that top order has got a massive cloud over it, and so those two are. I think
unlikely to change both, though. You'd think.
No, and I think Duckett's got more chance.
Yeah,
than Zach. To be honest, I think it seems like that they're reacting a bit to media stuff, and the media has looked at the way Zach's played over the last few years and has really scrutinised his play. Whereas Ben Duckett, the Ashes was a poor one for him, and I think he got undone by the surfaces a bit. But he actually has performed really well over the last sort of three or so years since he's come into the side. So I think he's more secure. So if anyone, I think, unfortunately, because I do get on with him, Zach is someone that needs to churn out runs, and hundreds of them.
Which is interesting, isn't it, given what you said about county cricket and the pace of the bowlers and the pitches and stuff. And if you're under pressure to deliver runs, it must be pretty tough in conditions that you haven't been used to after the last couple of years or so. So let's build this England side, what we think it's going to be. So Who do you think? So let's assume Duckett. Let's assume 2 to 6 is Duckett, Bethel, Root, Brooke, and Stokes. Okay, so you got an opener and a keeper, and then we'll come to the bowlers. So who do you think that other opener? Who do you think is likely to be, or who do you think that a small subset of the candidates?
I still think it'll be Zach. I'll be
Okay,
honest. I think
right.
he's,
Well, yeah, let's
because,
have him in there. Yeah.
yeah, because he's centrally contracted. So I still think Crawley has a good chance of playing that first one, because we mentioned Asa Tribal. I don't see him
Yeah.
as a, as a test opener, and then, so I still strongly think it will be Zach. But if he doesn't score runs, then maybe one of the ones we're talking about, Sibley, they go for someone who has got proven success, and they go against the grain of what they've done, because they're showing as a management group they're adaptable.
Yeah. I think it's a straight shootout between two batters who you would say actually are quite similar, tall, slapper in Crawley and Sibley to go alongside Duckett. Right, wicket keeper. I reckon this is the
Smith,
thorniest subject. I think it's Jamie Smith as well. I don't. I think they've deliberately put him into, kept him away from the limelight. And I think it's Jamie Smith. I don't see anybody else that's gonna keep him particularly. Right? So that's easy. Right, the bowlers. Let's go with the spinner. Shoaib Bashir's joined Derbyshire this year from Somerset, so he's going to play. But again, all right, Div 2, whatever. But you would assume that England have moved on from Shoaib Bashir. Is this the James
would you?
Coles moment? Yeah, I think that.
Why?
I think they've moved on.
What, you reckon that's him done at the
Yeah,
Ashes, not playing in the Ashes as?
yeah, I think so. I mean, if you look at how I heard they saw him on Instagram or whatever, they in his WhatsApp group, they shared it. They took him out to Abu Dhabi with a load of other spinners. He bowled really well. They liked him. He played the India series. I might have played a bit more as well. And then for whatever reason, Australia, he's obviously bowling in the nets, right? It's not like they didn't see him bowl, but clearly however he was bowling or whatever he was producing in the nets wasn't what they wanted. So I just don't see how he suddenly become what they want when he wasn't producing it in the nets for them down there. But I think if England announce a side that is essentially, now you got Will Jackson there as well. They could go with Jacks at 8, and he's doing that job. If England name a side that is pretty much the same side that got duffed up in the Ashes, I think there'll be mass uproar in the masses. There'll be protesting in Trafalgar Square, all that sort of type of stuff. So I think they've got to go with something that's different. And I think the four guys in this, I think, even though I think Jamie Smith will play, are Crawley, Smith, and Bashir. Those three.
Yeah,
So
I'm just trying to think on the other options, because I do think it is an issue, isn't it? And Jack's, as well as he batted, I think it highlighted that
yeah, there's
there's some
definitely deficiencies in
the
his bowling. Yeah,
yeah
at test level.
yeah. So you've got do they go to your man Dawson?
Yeah,
Who they dabbled with, because early on, it's not, the spin side of stuff doesn't necessarily come into it. It's more of that holding role, which
yeah.
is why
Which was
I was
which
interested
Ashley Giles did
when
really
you
well.
ruled out. Yeah, that's why I was interested when you ruled out Bashir the way you did, because he hasn't done a bad job of that in England.
Got a question
To,
for you on that. Sorry, mate. I got a question for you on that. 21 years between your Ashes series and now. Do you think the way that opening batters or top order batters treat spinners who hold up an end is different from then to now?
yeah, 100%.
And I
Because
think
it's
that's why they
the
won't go with Bashir for that reason.
okay. Yeah, the methodology batters use now, they're 360 against them.
Mm,
They look at it and they attack spin. Not saying they didn't in 21 years ago, but I think now that young batters just attack spin, and it's probably a knock on from T20 stuff. They look to
mm.
sweep, look to reverse sweep, the happy feet down. Whereas in my time we were a bit more circumspect. We were sort of making sure, trying to really sort of wait for that bad ball and play the longer game of it. Now there's no waiting. It's just right. I'm getting runs. They just see it as runs opportunity. So that's why a spinner who can nullify that, and it's a bit negative, sort of ties the batter up and can just do a job, go at twos and threes. You're not looking for them to win you the match at that point, but you're looking for them to give
have
your other
control.
bowlers a rest. And yeah, and that's where Gilo was brilliant at it.
Yeah,
He chipped away with a couple of wickets. We were never looking for Ash to bowl sides out. His role, which he did very brilliantly, was clearly defined. And that's what he bowled over the wicket, stump to stump, made it difficult.
or
Um,
outside
so
Tendulkar's
yeah, no,
legs
it's
a
yeah.
lot.
I think the spinner one the spinner one must be a massive headache for those
Yeah, I think so.
selectors. And
Because the other bowlers, there's enough quicks about of quality for that to be a bit of a rotation. You'd assume that Atkinson's going to play. Let's say Japs doesn't play. Atkinson bats at 8, and then 9, 10 Jack is a combination of various people, I suppose. You've got the boys who played Archer and Cast. You've got Sam Cook. He probably comes back into play. You've got some of the guys who've been trying, Sonny Baker, a few other guys across the county. So I think fast bowling stocks, the Pacers is well stocked. So I think the three, and let's assume Jamie Smith isn't in contention. That does mean then you're only talking about one and Jack, really, aren't you? You're talking about who's the other opening bat and who's the spinner. Assume the spinner bat's
I
at
think
11.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I think you'll see it. You'll see those seamers you mentioned, the guys that were out in Oz. They'll be given that opportunity. Interesting if Archer, what they see as him going forward. Do they, he's is he a is he someone who's in for this summer to try and win the matches this summer, or do they, someone like a Sonny Baker, do they think more longer term and give
yeah,
him that opportunity? So, but yeah, ultimately, I don't think they like wholesale changes at the top, at Test level, because you're building a team, you're building a culture, and so adding the odd one or two is easy. If you all of a sudden, if things are up in the air, you don't want to go back to that throwback time of Ramprakash and
no,
Butcher and these guys where people are showing up to the first test and looking around going, geez, if I don't perform, I could be out here, and that's what McCullum has tried to install in them. He's gone the other way a little bit. I'm trying to think of the quote that Kesey said. But essentially along those lines, that they put a massive value on the people they knew, and
yeah,
probably overdid
yeah.
that.
Something about loyalty,
Um,
wasn't it? He
that's
said
it.
something.
Yeah, yeah. We
Yeah,
put,
yeah.
we overvalued loyalty, is
That's
what
it.
he said.
Yeah, that's what he said. Yeah, exactly. Final question on a subject I know you like, which is culture. How much of what the counties do on a culturally, what they do on a day-to-day basis is or could be determined by what McCullum says and Rob Key says in that DOC call. So is there like a Barcelona type thing? Is there a unified culture across English cricket, or is it disparate?
You each need to have your individual cultures. What does it mean to be a Kent player? What's the history? And you guys are having the light shone on you currently, but for those coming before and after you, what does it mean? And so and I think the influence of McCullum and that would potentially is around the style of cricket they're looking for. And that then can also define some words that you use in your culture with how you step across the road in terms of your cricket there. They don't want to see, Dow. They want to see exciting cricket, which can be elevated up. So that definitely can have an impact. But it's a bit late. Everyone sat down and signed their memorandums of what their season is going to be looked at. And they've worked on it for a long time. I had a chat with Alex Stewart this week, who popped down to Canterbury, and it was just
Yeah, he's back in his
just as
role
I
now,
was
isn't
finished. Yeah, he was, and he talked about that. The member of staff that they have in place that just works around that the identity of Surrey cricket. What is it and what? So in terms of this call, they've all done it. Now they're into their season. So they've defined how they want to play. I remember,
Mm.
when Yorkshire won the county championship a number of years ago when Jason Gillespie was in charge, over the winter, they identified that their fast bowlers wanted to hit the knee roll of batters to get them out bowled and LBW. They wanted to be the best at that. And if they did that, they'd win. And that's exactly what they did. So to have that call now, April, first match next weekend, it's almost a little bit too late to have a
Yeah.
major
Yeah.
impact on that side. And do you know what, mate? I cannot believe I've after you stopped talking, I just sort of like, what am I doing? That was my opportunity. Jordan Cox opened the batting.
Ta-da!
What was I thinking?
Excellent. Marvellous stuff. I think you'd tell me the answer to the quiz was David Gower. Well, there you go. If only McCullum didn't live in New Zealand, maybe we could have had that meeting. Before, mate, listen, another episode done. You're off skiing, so enjoy yourself. Try not to get injured or any of that sort of stuff. And I will speak with you when you get back.
Cheers, mate. I'm looking forward to our flight. Yeah, leave meeting at school in about 6 hours. Can't wait.
There you go. Have excellent stuff. See you, pal.
So yeah.